revealed how a 12-year-old son exposed his father's injustice over a $100K college fund, transforming his family and community. Ethan's heart pounded as he flipped through the thin pages of the bank statement. Numbers blurred, feelings swirled, and disbelief crashed over him like a tidal wave. He thought he knew everything about his dad, a decorated war veteran, the proud owner of Maplewood's beloved hardware store. But now, beneath the fluorescent light of his kitchen, he stumbled upon a truth that felt like betrayal on every level. The 100K college fund, that shimmering promise of his future, had a gaping hole in it. His father had been siphoning money, and every dollar felt like a dagger to Ethan's dreams. For as long as he could remember, Ethan idolized his dad. He wore his uniform with pride and shared stories of courage, commitment, and sacrifice. Those late-night whispers he thought were just stress, a family struggling to pay bills, now morphed into a shadow of anguish and distrust. Maplewood once hailed his father's business as a success story, but now it sat in ruins, just like Ethan's innocent notions of his family. The weight of it all made his chest feel tight. The joyful laughter that used to fill their home faded into muted arguments, and the gnawing hunger for answers. Feeling the world spinning on a shaky axis, Ethan decided he wouldn't let this moment define him. He wanted justice, not just for himself, but for all those who dared to dream, like he did. He gathered the courage, and fueled by righteous anger, organized a community fundraiser. This was his chance to replenish the college fund and push back against the deep-seated inequities he began to see reflected in their neighbors' wary eyes. Pumpkin spice wafted through the air as flyers filled with colorful drawings fluttered around the neighborhood. Some neighbors offered support, smiling encouragement. Others raised skeptical eyebrows, whispering in groups. Conversations turned tense as old resentments resurfaced, exposing divides that ran through their small town like cracks in pavement. Ethan felt the heat of emotion rise in the air, his heart racing with every laugh that sounded forced, every word that seemed loaded. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day of the fundraiser arrived, bright with hopes, but thick with anxiety. Friends, strangers, and families gathered in the park, their eyes on Ethan as he stood on the makeshift stage, the whispers silencing to an expectant hush. His heart raced, every beat echoing against his ribs like applause waiting to happen. When he began to speak, emotion filled his throat, and yet he held himself steady, letting each word pour out. Today we fight not just for our dreams but for a better tomorrow. His voice rang out clear and determined. We can't turn a blind eye to who gets to dream, who gets the chance. Everyone deserves fairness. He glanced at his father among the crowd, the prideful but worried figure blending into the throng. Secrets lingered above them like storm clouds, and Ethan felt the swell of unspoken truths waiting to be uncovered. Just when the applause began to swell, the earth beneath him seemed to shake with a revelation. A hidden truth about his father's actions surfaced. Was it a lie? Or was it redemption waiting to be claimed? The audience held their breath, tension wrapping tighter around them like a coiled spring, leaving Ethan questioning everything he thought he knew. How would this twist change everything? As hope flickered, uncertainty blended into the mix. And the answer, how to reconcile love with the thirst for justice, loomed in the air, heavy and tangible. The crowd pulsed with anticipation, hushed whispers bouncing around like a live wire. Ethan's heart felt like it might burst. He glanced down at the notes in his hands, but the words he wanted to share melted away under the heat of the moment. They had come to support him, yet the eyes searching his held an urgency he couldn't ignore. Thanks everyone, he stammered, suddenly feeling small under the weight of their expectations. Fear crawled up his spine, making his palms slick. But then, he remembered why he stood there, fighting not just for his future, but for all the futures in Maplewood that had been shadowed by injustice. Let me tell you something, he continued, drawing in a deep breath. A while ago, I learned something about my family that didn't make sense. My dad, you all know him. Well, things aren't as they seem. Gasps rippled through the crowd, confusion shimmering in their eyes. At the back, his father watched, consternation etched on his face. Ethan's resolve wavered, but he pressed on. I discovered money was being taken from the college fund my dad set up for me. He spent it elsewhere. Can you imagine how that feels? A murmur spread through the field, the buzz of disbelief gathering steam. But in Ethan's heart, a mix of anger and compassion churned. He couldn't just paint his dad as the villain. This wasn't a simple narrative. He needed to capture the truth in its entirety. Maybe you're thinking my dad is just a bad guy, but I know he loves me, he said, looking around at the faces of his neighbors. But he also made choices, to help the business, to provide for our family. I'm on this stage because I want to fix what's broken. His voice wavered yet burned bright with emotion. Just then, a voice rang out from the crowd. Why would he do that? To his own son? A woman's face twisted in disbelief, echoing what everyone likely felt. Ethan's stomach knotted, but he lifted his chin. I don't know, but we have a chance to fix this now. We can make a change together. That's what this fundraiser is all about. His eyes searched the audience, desperate for their connection. If my dad made mistakes, it doesn't mean we're lost. It means we can help each other find our way. In that moment, a flicker of understanding lit up the crowd. A few heads nodded, quiet murmurs of agreement buzzing. But the flicker was small, fragile, and he worried about the storm brewing beneath the surface. What had he set in motion with his revelation? As the applause broke forth, he didn't feel victorious and just anxious and unresolved. There was so much more to this story, more layers to uncover. What had driven his father to such desperation? Would his dad admit the truth? The stakes were rising, threading their way through the heart of the community like a finely woven tapestry. Suddenly, the tension in the air grew heavier again as Ethan caught sight of a figure moving through the crowd. His father, striding straight toward him with determination etched in every line of his weary face. The shockwaves of his approach reverberated through the gathering, each step rippling with anticipation and dread. As their eyes locked, Ethan felt a rush of emotions: love, defiance, fear. The questions he longed to ask loomed larger than life. "Dad," he said, the word hanging in the air, splitting momentarily between them. "I need to know." But would his father be ready to share the truths behind the choices he'd made? The answer now felt just out of reach, teasing everyone gathered in that park as they waited for the next revelation to unfold. Ethan's heart raced as his father closed the distance. The murmurs in the crowd faded into a dull roar, a white noise that drowned out everything but the two of them. His father's expression was a blend of determination and something softer. Fear, perhaps. "Ethan," his dad finally said, his voice low and rough like gravel underfoot. "Please. Not here." The plea made Ethan's insides twist. Did his father wish to silence him? But this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about their community, about the trust that had been shattered. "But Dad, they deserve to know." "Do they?" His father's eyes darted around, meeting the gazes of their neighbors. Each pair seemed to carry judgment, each set of ears strained to hear. "What you just shared, it's not just a simple mistake. It's complicated." "Complicated," Ethan echoed, frustration boiling beneath his skin. "What can be complicated about lying to your son? Taking money meant for my future?" The words clawed their way out, raw and honest. "Ethan!" His father stepped closer, his voice rising just slightly. "You're too young to understand everything. I did what I thought was best." "What you thought was best?" Ethan's voice cracked, but he didn't back down. "You jeopardized my whole life. For what? For the business? For pride?" A flicker of pain crossed his father's face. The crowd shifted, restless, their emotions thrumming like a live wire, waiting for any hint of resolution or explosion. "Listen," his father said, lowering his voice as if trying to shield their conversation from the eager ears around them. "The world isn't black and white. I loved your mother, and I wanted to keep our family afloat. Your college was a promise, yes, But I thought I was making sacrifices for something bigger. Bigger? Ethan's jaw clenched. Bigger than me? Bigger than us? At that moment, time seemed to pause, each second stretched, vulnerable and raw, and Ethan's heart thudded heavily in his chest. The tornado of emotion around him felt palpable, swirling memories of family dinners and laughter as much as it did an oppressive cloud of betrayal. The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word, every shift in his father's expression, as if they were all partaking in a shared secret. Finally, Ethan took a shaky breath, his voice steadying as clarity broke through his anger. I want to understand, but I need the truth. All of it. No more lies. His father's gaze held a storm of indecision, and for a heartbeat, it looked like he might step back. The hesitance, the fear. Ethan felt it all like an electric current. Then, almost imperceptibly, his father relaxed. His shoulders drooped, and the fire in his eyes softened. You deserve that, son. But it won't be easy to hear. Ethan's breath hitched, realization dawning on him. This was it. This was the moment that could either fracture their family further or give them a path toward healing. Then let's do it together, Ethan urged, his voice a whisper now, reverberating with newfound hope. We can face this, together. Just as they locked eyes again, something shifted in their dynamic, a glimmer of understanding, the fragile bridge reaching out for repair. But before either of them could say more, a loud gasp erupted from the back of the crowd. What do you mean together? A voice yelled out. What else aren't you telling us? Tell us everything. Ethan's heart sank again, realizing they were standing on the edge of a dangerous cliff. Dad, he whispered, adrenaline surging. What else is there? With the crowd now buzzing with tension and anticipation, he could feel the chasm between truths yawning before him. Would they step off the edge together, or would the plunge into darkness swallow them whole? Ethan's father hesitated, a flicker of panic crossing his face. The crowd had come alive, voices rising in questioning tones, demanding answers. It was as if a dam had broken, releasing pent-up frustrations and doubts that had been building for years. His grip on the situation was slipping, and for the first time, Ethan wondered if they could really face this together. His father started, then faltered, glancing at the sea of anxious faces surrounding them. The once familiar neighborhood felt foreign, as if their very lives had been put on display. Just be honest, Ethan said, the words spilling out with a quiet urgency. You owe me that much. The air thickened with tension. His father drew in a deep breath, visibly steeling himself for what lay ahead. What I did, it was wrong. But it's not the way you think it is, Ethan. The money, our struggle, there are layers to this. Ethan struggled to keep his composure. Then tell me. I'm tired of guessing. Another moment held them captive, the crowd silent. Breaths paused in anticipation. It felt monumental, this choice of whether to reveal or conceal. After your mother passed, his father began, his voice trembling, I found myself lost. Every decision weighed heavily on me. I thought taking that money would help keep the business running, keep us afloat. I thought... His voice cracked, and he looked down, unable to meet Ethan's gaze. I thought it was survival. Survival? Ethan's heart pounded in disbelief. So it was okay to steal from me? You chose your pride, your failing business over my future? It wasn't just that, his father snapped, anger flaring amid the shame. I was scared. Losing her felt like the end. I jumped into this chaos hoping it could save us. Ethan felt the truth of his father's fears, a wave of empathetic understanding crashing over him, but it did little to chase away the bitterness. But what about me? What about my dreams? I wanted to protect you, the father argued, desperation heavy in his tone. I thought if I could just hold on a little longer it would be okay. I wanted to give you a life you deserved, just like your mother wanted. I thought it would help us, all the choices I made. They were for us. In the end, it was all lies. Ethan's words fell as heavy as stones, but he felt a flicker of resolve ignite within him. I get it. You thought you were saving us. But now, you're breaking apart everything Mom built for us. The crowd shifted, murmurs rising like a storm. Suspense hung thick in the air, and Ethan could sense the community and their judgment closing in. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about everyone who had trusted his father, everyone who had seen them stumble, and who now demanded answers. "Dad," Ethan whispered, feeling the weight of this family secret. It was a burden they'd carried too long. "We can't fix things without honesty. There's too much at stake now." His father nodded slowly, tears shimmering in his eyes. "You're right. It's time. I have to face everything I've done. Everything I've hidden." As they stood there, Ethan could feel the air shift. A sense of urgency sparked within the crowd as they clenched fists and exchanged glances, hoping for a resolution that felt far away. "Then let's do it," Ethan urged again, his voice steadying. "But let's not just fix the business. Let's fix us." Just then, another shout broke through the tension. "You can't just say it's a mistake. There are consequences." Ethan's heart lurched. "Dad, what else are they talking about? What have you done?" With that, the divide between them loomed larger, and it was clear that this was only the beginning. As echoes of their shattered truths reverberated through the air, Ethan clung to hope. But would they have the strength to brace themselves for the revelations yet to come? Ethan's father swallowed hard, his face a mix of regret and anxiety. The crowd had grown impatient, eager to understand the depths of the betrayal. A ripple of tension passed through the people, each waiting for the answers that could change their perspective on the man they thought they knew. "I didn't just take the money for the business," his father finally confessed, voice ragged as if the words were thorny thistles stuck in his throat. I thought it would help me win favor, maybe even buy trust. But it spiraled out of control." "Win favor? Trust?" Ethan snapped, disbelief creeping into his voice. "You thought you could buy people's trust? That's not survival. That's running scared." Ethan's knees shook as he spoke, and the looks from the crowd felt like daggers. Whispers swirled around him, amplifying his sense of isolation amid the growing storm. How could his father have been so naive? Yet, beneath the anger, Ethan recognized a fragile part of himself aching for understanding. "Dad, how did it get this far?" His father hesitated, gaze flitting over the faces of the gathered crowd, searching for something, or someone. There were people who needed money, and I thought... His voice faltered again. "I thought if I helped them, they'd help us. I didn't think it'd lead to... this." Ethan felt his heart crack open a little wider. "Did you even consider what this would do to me? To us? I had my life planned out. College. A chance to make something of myself. You took that away." A painful silence stretched between them, filled only by the accumulating murmurs of the crowd that seemed to press even closer, ears straining for the answer that would follow. "Do you know what I used to believe?" Ethan continued, voice growing fierce yet soaked with vulnerability. "I always thought we were a team. But now, you've made me feel like I don't even know my own father. When your mother died, I lost my way. I was drowning and grabbed for anything to stay afloat," he admitted, regret painting his features. Yet he lifted his eyes to meet Ethan's. "I thought I could keep the nightmare at bay." A soft gasp escaped from the back of the crowd, a woman's voice. "He just wanted what's best for you, Ethan." It was a neighbor who had watched them struggle over the years. "The best?" Ethan shouted. "This isn't what's best. Trust is built on honesty, not deceit." The heat of passion coursed through him, igniting a fire he hadn't realized was smoldering inside. His father stepped forward, desperation etched into the lines of his face. "Ethan, I know I can't take back what I've done. But I'm here now. I'm willing to face the community, the consequences. I want to make this right." The crowd was still, and Ethan could sense them weighing the implications of his father's words. Questions sparked in the air, forming like thunderclouds ready to let loose. "What consequences?" Another voice called out from the back. "You think you can just apologize and everything will be all right?" Ethan's stomach twisted. What consequences did they mean? Would his father have to face legal repercussions? Would their lives unravel completely? In that moment, a voice from the edge of the gathering broke through. An older man, one of his father's business partners, looked intensely into Ethan's eyes. The truth will always find its way out, kid. It's what you do with it that matters. Ethan's mind raced, and he felt a mix of fear and resolve wash over him. They stood at the edge of a precipice, and what happened next felt like a leap into the unknown. "Dad," he said quietly, "let's not just confess. Let's plan what comes after, together." With those words, he realized this was their chance to rebuild. But just as hope flickered to life between them, and the crowd shifted with anticipation, another figure emerged from the back, a familiar face that sent a jolt through Ethan. His mother's sister, Aunt Lisa, stood there, eyes fierce and filled with tears. "Enough hiding," she called out, her voice ringing clear. "It's time the whole truth is told." Ethan gasped, heart racing. What new revelation could be waiting in the wings, and would it shatter everything he thought he understood? Ethan's heart thudded in his chest as Aunt Lisa stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. The crowd fell eerily silent, the air thick with anticipation. He felt as though they were all holding their breaths, waiting for a storm that was about to break. "What do you mean, Lisa?" Ethan's father asked, his voice tight with tension. Aunt Lisa wiped away a tear that had crept down her cheek, rage and sorrow mingling in her expression. "You think this is just about money? It's not that simple. This has been brewing for years, and your choices, Richard, they've hurt a lot of people." A piercing glance met Ethan's gaze, as if she were beckoning him to step back into a painful past. "You remember how your mother often spoke about that family? The ones who lost everything when the business went under?" Ethan felt a jolt of recognition. He recalled vague stories about a partnership gone wrong, the family that had suffered, their faces etched into his memory. "You're talking about them?" "Exactly," Aunt Lisa pressed on, her voice rising. "Your father took their savings trying to keep afloat his dream. All the while, he was dragging you along without a plan." She turned, now addressing everyone around them, the tension palpable. Richard knew this world was built on trust, and he shattered it to save himself. Gasps rippled through the crowd, disbelief and anger mixing like oil and water. Ethan wanted to scream, but found himself frozen. The implications of her words crashed over him like waves. Trust? His father needed to understand that trust wasn't just about money. It was about honor, integrity. "What I did was wrong. I see that now," his father choked out. "I wanted to keep us safe. I thought I could—" He stumbled over the words. "I thought I could make it right somehow." "But what about the others?" Aunt Lisa demanded. "Your actions caused their lives to go off the rails. Do you know what that feels like? To watch someone lose everything because of your mistakes?" Ethan felt anger bubbling up within him, but even more so, a twisted sense of sympathy toward his father. "Dad, if we're going to face this together, let's face all of it," he urged. "You can't hide from your choices anymore." A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd, confusion intermingled with anger. "What do you mean?" Ethan turned back to his father, locking eyes, pleading. "If we don't lay everything out on the table now, everyone will assume the worst. You need to explain the whole truth to them. And to me." Richard's face paled, and without breaking eye contact with Ethan, he nodded slowly. "You're right. There's so much I haven't said. I thought by keeping you in the dark, I was protecting you. But I was wrong." Aunt Lisa stepped closer, her eyes softening slightly. "You need to own this, Richard. No more running away." Richard inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly, summoning strength. Okay. I'll tell you everything. But first, can we ask for some privacy? Just a moment. To breathe?" But the crowd was restless. "This isn't just between you," someone shouted angrily. Ethan's head spun in confusion. What more could there be? Was this just the beginning? As he stood there with his father, anger and sadness wrestled inside him. What answers would come to light, and would this bring closure or create an even bigger storm? Then, through the unrest of the crowd, another voice broke in. A man Ethan barely recognized, stepping out from the back. I know what's hidden here, and if you're going to tell the truth, you better start with what you did to me. Ethan's breath caught. What was he about to reveal? Would it unravel everything? Ethan's heart raced as all eyes shifted to the man emerging from the shadows. The unfamiliar face bristled with tension, his jaw tight and hands clenched into fists. The crowd stilled, a collective breath held in suspension, waiting for the storm to hit. "Who are you?" Richard finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the man were a ghost from the past he couldn't quite remember. "The name's Jeremy," he said sharply, locking his gaze on Richard. "I was part of the business, remember? You took everything from me. From my family." With each word, Jeremy's voice grew louder, fueled by years of simmering resentment. "We lost our home because of your decisions. I watched my brother go hungry, all in the hopes that you'd pull it together." Ethan felt sick to his stomach. The raw pain in Jeremy's voice sent shivers through him. He had never seen this man before, hadn't understood the full scope of what his father's choices had wrought. Now, pieces of the puzzle were snapping into place with uncomfortable speed. Richard flinched. "I wanted to help. I didn't realize how deep it had gotten. I thought—" "Thought what?" Jeremy interrupted, sarcasm dripping from his words. "That you could spend our savings like it was your own? That we'd just sit back and watch as you chased your dreams?" The crowd shifted, some inching closer, their expressions a mix of curiosity and judgment. Ethan could feel the weight of their gazes. He wanted to disappear but knew he had to stand firm for his father. "Jeremy, please," Ethan pleaded, desperation creeping in. "Just let him speak. This is about the truth, not revenge." But the man continued, his voice breaking slightly. The truth is all I've wanted. You think you can just gloss over this? It's not that easy." Richard's face paled further, the color draining as if he hadn't expected these confrontations. "It's true. I made mistakes, but you need to understand." Jeremy's hand shot up, cutting off Richard's feeble attempts to rationalize. "Understand what? How to ruin lives, how to lie. You don't get to play the victim here, Richard." Ethan felt his heart hammering harder against his ribcage. "Say what you need to say," he urged his father, his voice quivering slightly. "You owe him that much." Richard swallowed hard, and for a moment the facade of control shattered. "You want the truth? Fine. I thought I was saving my family. I was trying to build a legacy, but I didn't just forget about yours, Jeremy. I thought I could right my wrongs, but I failed everyone." The crowd murmured again, suspicion mixed with an air of disbelief. They had come to hear a confession, not this shaky defense. Ethan sensed the anger brewing, drawing closer to a boiling point. Then, as silence returned once more, Jeremy stepped forward. "So what now? You lay it all bare and hope for forgiveness? It doesn't work that way, Richard." Ethan felt the weight of the moment, and a thought struck him like lightning. "Why can't we make this right? Maybe there's a way we can help." But before he could finish, Jeremy shook his head, his expression hardening. "You don't get it. This isn't just about money or apologies. It's about lives. My brother's life." As tension hung thick in the air, Ethan's throat tightened. Was it too late for redemption? Could they bridge the divide left in the wake of Richard's choices? "Please, just let's start somewhere," Ethan urged, feeling the eyes of the crowd pressing on him. In that moment, a smile flickered on Jeremy's lips, but it was laced with skepticism. "Maybe you're right, but keep your eyes open. The truth can cut deep." Ethan held his breath, uncertainty swirling within him. What would the truth reveal? What would happen when they all faced the fallout of the past together? With the tension hanging in the air, Ethan wondered if this was the beginning of healing, or just the start of an even larger unraveling. He felt a chill run down his spine. What new revelations would come to light when they dared to confront their reality head-on? Ethan felt a rush of frustration and fear mixed into a potent cocktail of emotions. Could they really manage to turn this chaotic confrontation into something constructive? Richard remained frozen, his eyes darting between Jeremy and Ethan, desperately searching for a way out of this mess. "Starting over?" Jeremy shook his head, a hint of bitterness lining his words. "That ain't enough. You think an apology can fix what's broken? Ethan's chest tightened as a wave of sorrow washed over him. He yearned to reach across the chasm of pain between them, to show both men a way forward. No. But what if we tried to rebuild? Not just the past, but something better for everyone. We can help each other. Jeremy rolled his eyes but didn't respond, instead glancing back at the crowd. They were still watching, their expressions shifting from curiosity to impatience. Each face held a story, a connection to the consequences of Richard's choices. Thick silence stretched, heavy enough to shatter with a single glance. "Look," Richard began, and for the first time, vulnerability crept into his voice. "I can't change what I've done, but I want to try and make things right, or at least as right as possible. I'm willing to listen." Ethan could see Jeremy's resolve faltering as anger wrestled with the hope that had just ignited in the room. "Listening isn't enough," he finally spat. "You need to prove you mean it. Actions, not words." "I can offer you a job," Richard interjected, taking a step forward. "A real position where you can be part of this business, help it grow without having to worry about what I might take from you. This could be a new start for both of us." The crowd stirred, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, the promise of opportunity mixed with the bitter taste of betrayal. Ethan watched as Jeremy processed the proposal. For a fleeting moment, a softness flickered in his eyes, but just as quickly, it was replaced by a hardened resolve. "It's going to take more than a job to fix this," Jeremy replied, his tone steady, but softening just a touch. "You have to understand that there's so much more at stake here than any offer you can make." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling his pulse quicken again. He had to support his father, but he also had to appeal to Jeremy's pain. "We understand the stakes, Jeremy. But if we don't try something different, what will happen? Another cycle of resentment? You'll still be trapped in your anger and we'll be isolated from each other." The crowd went silent once more, absorbing his words. Ethan saw the glimmer of recognition in some faces, families haunted by choices, losses not unlike Jeremy's. Hope felt fragile, teetering on the edge of despair. "I can't promise trust, but I can promise respect," Richard added, desperation creeping into his voice. "That's a start. We can build from there." Jeremy stepped back, clearly weighing the options. "Respect is earned. It doesn't come easy." Ethan nodded, willing to match that challenge. "Then let's earn it together. We all need to face this together, not just you and my father, but all of us." As the weight of his words settled in the air, Ethan felt a tidal wave of urgency. This was their moment, an opportunity to rise above the bitterness or to sink back into the shadows. "So, what's it going to be, Jeremy? Are we ready to fight for something better?" The challenge hung between them, raw and real. Ethan held his breath, praying for an answer that could shift everything. How could they navigate the jagged path ahead and hope for something like reconciliation? The flicker in Jeremy's eyes spoke volumes. Might they be on the cusp of transformation, or were they just heralding another storm? The air crackled with tension, a powerful mix of fear and hope. Ethan clasped his hands tightly, feeling the warmth leave them as anticipation swept over the crowd. Jeremy's expression was still unreadable, caught in the tug-of-war of disbelief and newfound possibility. "Look," Jeremy finally spoke, his voice quieter but edged with intensity. "I don't know if I can just step into this and pretend it's all okay. You're talking about trust like it's a switch I can flip on." He took a deep breath, as if searching for the right words. "You've hurt me, Richard. You've hurt a lot of us. You can't just erase that." "I know it's complicated," Richard replied, his voice earnest. "But I want to try. Let me prove myself. I have ideas, big ones, and I could use your insight, your passion. Together, we could create a space that embodies trust, not just for us, but for everyone who's felt left behind." Ethan's heart raced as he listened. Richard's words felt sincere, but the shadows of the past loomed large. He shifted his gaze between Jeremy and his father, desperate to see what the moment would yield. "I need time," Jeremy finally said, his facade cracking just a little. "Time to think about what you said, about rebuilding. But you have to understand, it's not just about you and me. You need to make amends, and I mean real ones. This isn't about you offering me a job to wipe the slate clean." "Then let me show you I'm serious," Richard urged, stepping closer to Jeremy, his expression earnest. "I can start by volunteering my time at the community center. I've neglected it for too long. I can help with the youth programs, mentor, whatever it takes." A murmur traveled through the crowd, a ripple of interest. Ethan felt a flicker of hope pinch at his heart. Could it be enough? Would Jeremy see it for what it was, an actual commitment? "And if we start there, it could lead to something bigger," Ethan added, leaning in, sensing a window of possibility. "We can build from the ground up. A trust that takes time. But we can make it real." "Is that what you think? That a few hours at a community center is going to erase years of wrong?" Jeremy's frustration rose again. "It sounds nice, but it's not that simple. You don't just get to play hero after being a villain." "I don't want to play hero," Richard insisted, a crack in his usually confident demeanor showing. "I just want to be part of the change, starting with my mistakes. I didn't live up to my own values, and I want to correct that. For you. For all of us." The silence was suffocating, the crowd watching intently, waiting for Jeremy's reaction. He looked from Richard to Ethan, a storm brewing in his eyes. "Okay," Jeremy finally said, gripping his fists tightly. "If you're serious, prove it. But it's not just a job, Richard. If you want to redeem yourself, you'll need to face your decisions head-on and be honest about them. You'll need to share your story before we can even think about moving forward." Ethan's heart sank a little. This was a daunting task. Could Richard share his truth? Would it drive them further apart, or pull them closer together? "I'll do it," Richard replied, the determination in his tone rising. "If that's what it takes, I will share everything, all my mistakes, even the ugliness." A sense of anticipation crackled in the air. Ethan felt the weight of their words. The challenge ahead was enormous. They stood on the brink of a transformation, precariously poised on the edge of hope. "What do you say then?" Jeremy asked, measuring the strength of the moment. "Is this where we start?" With the question hanging heavily between them, Ethan looked to his father. Their journey had just begun, and the path ahead was riddled with uncertainty. Could they face the truth and emerge on the other side, or would the brutality of reality tear them apart once more? As Richard prepared to lay bare his soul, the crowd leaned in, anticipating the shattering revelations that could either mend or fracture their fragile connections. Would the truth set them free, or would it lead to deeper wounds? Richard took a deep breath as he stood before the expectant crowd. Anxiety coursed through him, but determination fought its way to the surface. He glanced at Ethan. Those wide, trusting eyes were a constant reminder of the stakes. This moment felt monumental. This was the beginning of their salvation or another step into the abyss. "I'll admit this isn't easy for me," Richard began, his voice quavering yet steady. "I've carried a heavy burden, and it's time to let it go." He swallowed hard, feeling every emotion thread through his heart. "I thought I was being a provider, a protector, but I see that I was only blind to what really mattered." Every eye was on him, some with sympathy, others with resentment. "After Maria passed away, the world spun out of control. I thought taking money from the fund meant survival. I lost sight of what that fund truly represented. Dreams, a future for my son. And in losing sight, I lost my integrity." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ethan's heart raced, and he could feel hope, pain, and uncertainty mingling in the air. Would they understand? Would this be enough? I started taking money from Ethan's college fund to keep the business running, thinking that would keep us afloat. I wanted to be strong for my family, but what I did was wrong. Richard's voice caught, filling with regret. "The truth is, I let pride and fear drive my decisions. I thought I'd prove to everyone, myself included, that I could make it through." Ethan felt a swell of compassion ripple through him. It was hard to see the human behind the mistakes, but Richard was there, raw and exposed. It wasn't just an error. It was an avalanche. One decision after another, and I couldn't stop it. The crowd held its breath, and Ethan could see Jeremy's expression shifting. He looked pained but thoughtful, perhaps realizing there was more to the story. Everything spiraled, Richard confessed, his voice cracking. And I dragged my family into chaos. I took Richard's choices as a man and devoted father and turned them into a spiraling lie. I hurt people. I hurt you, Jeremy. And I hurt my own son, Ethan. What's done is done. It's the past, Jeremy shot back, pressing his lips together as if holding back more than just words. Is this just how you make amends? By unraveling everything here? No, Richard replied softly but firmly. This is where we start the journey. This is my commitment to do better. Ethan leaned forward, passion swelling inside him. It started with a lie, but we can push forward into truth. I want my father back. Someone who recognizes his mistakes but moves with purpose to make it right. Richard turned to Ethan, tears spilling down his cheeks. I promise you this. I will restore every cent, and I will spend my life fixing this. I'm ready to face the consequences and rebuild what I've broken. Together, as a community. Murmurs transformed into whispers of contemplation among the crowd, each person processing the gravity of his words. Jeremy stood still, digesting the enormity of the moment, the potential to forge a bridge instead of deepening the divide. You think a promise is enough? Jeremy challenged, but there was less bite to his words. It's going to take real work, years of rebuilding trust. I know, Richard responded urgently, desire lacing through his tone. If I could turn back time, I would, but the only choice I have is to face forward. I will work tirelessly to mend every broken relationship. I will put in the hours at the community center and be someone my son can be proud of. We will turn this pain into purpose, together. Ethan's heart soared, recognizing this was no simple task, but Richard was resolute, his desire to step up and reclaim their family. And I'm with you, Ethan declared, standing tall beside his father. We can all help. We owe it to everyone here. We owe it to this community. I want changes with my father out in the open, and I want to advocate for others left behind by his choices. That's why we stand here today, to change not just ourselves but the lives of those who felt as lost as we have. As hope mingled with determination in the air, the crowd began to nod, visibly absorbing their message. They stood on a precipice of transformation, unsure yet hopeful for what lay ahead. Will you give us a chance? Richard asked, locking eyes with Jeremy, who seemed to wrestle with his disappointment, but also with the hint of something softer. Let's see where this leads, Jeremy finally replied, arms crossed but not hostile. You'll have to prove it to me first. A sense of mission blossomed among the crowd, a collective understanding that this was only the beginning. Together, they'd face a challenging journey forward, filled with obstacles, revelations, and hard-won trust. After a long moment, Richard's shoulders relaxed, the tension easing just a fraction. It wasn't going to be perfect. The road ahead would be winding with pain and shadows of mistrust. But for the first time in a long while, he felt that glimmer of hope. They were on the path to healing, together. With their voices blending around them, they vowed not only to find their way through, this community and family would reclaim their dreams, their strength, one step at a time. Make a commitment today. You need to subscribe now to our channel for more exclusive stories that will inspire and transform lives. Hit that bell for notifications so you won't miss a thing. Leave a like now to show your support and help the algorithm reach friends who need to share in these journeys of self-discovery. Don't wait, not even one more second. Comment on your feelings about this ending and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Remember, true fans understand the power of unity and support.